Hello, everyone, and welcome to podcast 4 of Entrepreneurial Echoes. Today is going to be economics focused, and we're going to be talking about um, AI like ChatGPT and how this impacts the labor market. So let's get started. Okay, firstly, what is the labor market? It's basically places where individuals seek employment and businesses demand labor for their operations. So if I open a company, I obviously demand a lot of labor, and the supply of labor depends on how many people are unemployed in that market. So if there is a lot of unemployment in that specific market of people who match the job description, then that refers to the labor supply. And how many employees the business actually needs for its operations is labor demand. Okay, and then market equilibrium, as we'll talk about later, is met when demand for labor equals supply for labor. This basically means that there are no shortages or surpluses of labor. I'll get more into that later. But basically, an equilibrium is the most optimal outcome because it's not biased towards any side, and there is like an efficient allocation of resources. Okay. Firstly, what does AI do? AI is used to build machines that can exhibit cognitive abilities. Now, what are cognitive abilities? They can be like problem solving or improving efficiency, decision making in various domains. Various domains basically means various fields. So it has the ability to learn, interpret, and provide solutions in various forms of life. So how does AI actually work though? AI is highly reliant on, or not reliant, AI is primarily made up of machine learning. Now, what is machine learning? Well, basically, let's say I'm some sort of machine and I have certain algorithms and someone has coded certain algorithms for me to perform on particular data sets. So let's say I have to identify patterns in this test data set. And so by running through the algorithm, which algorithm, by the way, is just a series of mathematical transformations or like series of instructions to solve a problem. So basically, the algorithm that is encoded in me, I will run through those steps, and those steps will be used to identify patterns in the data set. Now, these data sets, because I've been able to carry out these algorithms in these data sets, I'm actually able to recognize patterns. I'm able to learn. That's what machine learning is. And then now that I've learned from this testing, now I can apply my machine into a real world data set. So let's say a data set about number of employees in the world and against their income, against their status of health, against their real estate status, against their credit scores. So now my machine has learned using these algorithms, and these algorithms has taught it how to recognize patterns, and now they can apply this pattern recognition ability into real life data sets. Okay, now, sorry. Okay, effect of AI on the perfectly competitive labor market. Okay, so if I were to say that, sorry, perfectly competitive market, firstly, sorry. Yeah, so as I mentioned, labor supply and labor demand should be equal. At this point, a market equilibrium is met. So a market equilibrium is basically when the two curves on a graph in economics are equal, or so where they touch essentially. And what this tells us is two other things. It tells us what wage the employees will receive on at this agreed labor quantity, and how many quantity of and what quantity of workers have been employed. So basically, it has been agreed that let's say 30 um 30 workers will be um hired by the company, even though it might have 100 available, but only 30 is at a certain point 30 is demanded and 30 is supplied. They've agreed upon 30. because they believe that the market wage is fair at that point, and that the quantity of workers is is also shown as well on the y-axis. Now, usually the y-axis shows price level, wages, things like that. The x-axis usually shows quantity of something. It can be quantity of workers, quantity of um product, it can be real GDP, it can be time. But yeah, basically market equilibrium is met when the two curves meet, and this at this point it shows the agreed upon market wage and quantity employed. So it shows the agreed upon amount of whatever is in the y-axis and whatever is in the x-axis. Okay, now I'll teach you guys about what shifts are. So as you can see, the demand curve, there's a new demand curve been added, and the arrow indicates that the demand has moved rightwards. Now, whenever something like this happens, whenever something moves or a new demand causes something to move somewhere else, this is referred to as a shift. Now, you might be asking, what causes a shift? Well, a shift is pretty much caused by any disruption in the market equilibrium. So basically any change in the external environment. Any change brings about a change. It could be a change that brings about a change in demand for labor, supply of labor. It can be anything, but basically a change and what impact this change has. So let's say that theoretically, AI, the development of AI has brought about a change. It's brought about efficiency, productivity gains. And so as a result, demand of labor has increased because businesses believe that due to these advanced AI capabilities, more labor is an optimal choice, because now if I have more labor and I have more productivity of each labor due to the AI, I could expand my business. I can do whatever I want. So it could be a good form for those who are trying to expand rapidly, that okay, I'll benefit from AI, and so now I'm gonna demand more workers so that they can utilize this increased efficiency of AI and overall increase the scale of my business. So this would cause a shift essentially. And at this shift, once again, whenever there's a shift, you have to equalize supply and demand. And supply and demand is equalized wherever the two lines meet. So now we have to be looking at demand for labor too, and where that means supply of labor. And supply of labor is only one curve. So where that meets. More into that later. Okay, so now let's talk about this. We can see 2 points where they meet. The first is the original point, and the arrow indicates the next point at which they are equalized once a shift is brought about in the demand curve. Now, obviously you have to reach from the first point to the second point, and I'll get onto that in the next slide. Okay, now let's discuss how exactly it moves from point A to point B. Okay, so now let's suppose that they're in the process of moving up to that new market equilibrium. So let's see what exactly is happening. So let's say they're in like the middle area of that. Then what does this actually mean? So if I look at the supply curve and then I draw a line to the left and a line downwards, okay? So based on the supply, I can see the wage is WX and the quantity is QX. Okay, now on the same point, I draw towards the demand curve, and then I draw down and left again. So the wage is the same, but what there is that QX2. That means there's a greater quantity demanded than there is of supply of labor. So there's more quantity of labor being demanded than supplied. And now what does this do? This creates a situation of a shortage. So a shortage basically just means when demand is greater than supply. So supply cannot keep up. So you're at a shortage of supply, you're at a shortage of labor, shortage of goods. And so yeah, it's a crucial economics term. So now, how do I remove the shortage? Well, I have to increase my supply. So now my supply will increase until demand once again equals supply at the new point, which is the second dot. And at this point, the overall quantity of workers has increased due to the increased demand and its um um and its new agreement with supply. And so at this point, wage also increases. Usually when demand increases, wage does increase um because if usually whenever you demand something very highly, you have to sort of show how much you demand, and you do this in the form of higher prices, um and you are willing to pay more because you really want this. Okay, now let's talk about skill-based jobs. So let's see how AI will affect if it's high skill or low skill. Okay, so yeah, there's two ways we can compare how AI will affect. AI's effect on high skill jobs and AI's effect on low skilled jobs, and whether AI will have a complementary effect on these jobs or whether it will have a substitutable effect on these jobs. Now, what does complementary mean? This means that AI will be able to cause a positive sort of create positive change and create sort of assist in the conduction of tasks. So it'll sort of help labor, and it'll help them improve upon their tasks, improve upon quality, improve upon productivity, efficiency. So it'll sort of assist them and improve their current tasks. And then substitutable basically means that AI basically takes over for the job they're doing. So um if it's something, let's say, really simple, uh like calculating certain ratios, AI can do that. Or like accounting, AI can do that. And so they don't need real employees. Okay, so let's talk about this. This graph basically represents the relationship between the mean salary in America and their exposure to AIOE. So what does exposure mean in this scenario? I've done research, and by exposure, they mean they don't necessarily mean um whether it's going to be complementary or substitutable. Exposure just means how how much of AI is used in that market, how much of AI is observed in that market, how present is AI in that particular industry. And as you can see, it suggests that the higher the salary you have, the more presence of AI there is. So now this is quite indicative of something, and that is that high skilled jobs have higher exposure to AI. And we'll talk more about this. Yeah, as I mentioned, exposure is a vague description. It could mean either thing. It could be complementary or substitutable. And now we'll look at which high skilled jobs are complementary or substitutable, and which low skilled jobs are complementary and substitutable. Okay, high skilled jobs. Occupations in finance, as I mentioned, yeah, like accounting, calculations, medicine, and legal activities may suddenly find themselves at risk of automation from AI. And this is because their core functions rely on heavily accumulated experience to reach decisions. Now, this accumulated experience, this kind of refers to um experience, identifying patterns. It's all a bit of machine learning. It's the ability to solve problems based on past experience and help you improve upon um how you make decisions. And so therefore it increases efficiency. And obviously human error is a lot more likely than AI. So in general, efficiency will just be more likely. And that even obviously humans can learn from experience well, but then AI is just more suitable to learning from experience in the most optimal way possible because it doesn't have feelings, it doesn't have other biases that hinder its productivity. Okay, alternatively, a high skill job that may be complemented by AI, maybe assisted by AI, maybe helped by AI is healthcare professionals in automating simple tasks and complex tasks. Now, this is sort of breaking down the complementary aspect into two sections. One is that AI can do the simple tasks, and this sort of leaves time for the professional to focus on complex tasks. Whereas sometimes it can be the case that AI assists in the conduction of those complex tasks, or it could be both. You never know. So yeah, here it says healthcare professionals will be assisted by AI in automating simple and complex tasks by diagnosing diseases quicker, and utilizing the data gathered from AI algorithms, work on finding better solutions. So again, this refers to the machine learning aspect of using algorithms to identify patterns. And so once it's learned how to recognize patterns, it will apply this into real world scenarios, into real data sets, into things like medical professions and many more other industries. And similarly, AI functions in mechanical engineering include the optimization of design processes, leading to reduced development time and costs. Now, this is really good for the business because more costs just increases their overall cost of production and reduces their profit margins. And so optimization is very important because it can sometimes make or break your design. It can just make sure that you are getting the most optimal or the most best conditioned design that you could possibly have, and this maximizes your chances of having a successful product and successful customer reception of the product. Okay, now AI's effect on creative sector. So research suggests, and I strongly believe, that music and art will be highly affected by AI capabilities. Um, for example, recently I've seen that a lot of musicians' voices can be replicated by AI, like ChatGPT and other music AIs, and that a lot of art can be created by AI, which is really interesting because digital art has been expanding recently. Like NFTs are very common nowadays. So yeah, I think it's just really interesting. And yeah, this is just how it could affect the music industry. Obviously, personalized music recognition recommendations. So AI aspect of machine learning, recognizing patterns, applying it to real world scenarios. So it could recognize patterns in people's music taste. And so Spotify, for example, can create a personalized suggestion of music. They already do this. So like they use based on past experience, they suggest more songs that a person should listen to. And this can also be used by musicians based on their listeners and what genre of their music they really enjoy, what parts of their music they really enjoy. Do they enjoy when I drop sort of a pop kind of music? Do they enjoy fast beats, slow beats, etc.? And obviously AI can literally assist in sound design and mixing. So it can literally help you create beats. It can help you optimize your current beats. It can do a lot of things. It can create some creative sounds, some unnatural sounds, um a lot of different things. And then for art, yeah, I talked about digital art and augmented reality, and I talked about NFTs. Augmented reality is sort of like it can help in the creation of like uh illusionistic art, and then art restoration and conservation. So yeah, it can assist, it can help you um determine the best way of restoring art and how to conserve art. Like if it's like the Mona Lisa painting, how do I make it, how to keep it in the best condition for as long as possible? And maybe it got damaged, so how do I restore that damage? And then yeah, just style transfer. It could just suggest how to incorporate different styles, um how to implement certain styles, how to mix certain styles, etc. And then yeah, so that's pretty much it. So I want you guys to do further research on this if you'd like, or just use what you've learned in this podcast to help you answer the research question. And so the research question will be, to what extent does AI technology have the capacity to replace or complement human musicians in the creative process and live performances? Yeah, so I hope um you guys had a good time watching this podcast, and I look forward to seeing your responses.